Airbnb might be banned in the UK. Is that correct? I put up a few posts earlier talking about the consultation that's going on within the government about short stay lets, Airbnb becoming a little bit more regulated potentially in the future. And as a result, a lot of people are now a little bit worried. What do you mean, Samuel, that it's going to potentially be regulated? Listen, this is not a big deal. This is something that I predicted back in 2020. I said that they were going to regulate Airbnb in short stay lets and serviced accommodation. And now they are finally talking a little bit about it. So what's happening? Well, what's happening is the hotels and villages of small towns, seaside towns particularly, are getting fed up with their next door neighbours being rented out on short stay lets, and they're complaining. And the government have said, look, we'll look into it, and they're consulting whether potentially there needs to be some sort of regulation within short stay lets, within Airbnb. I personally don't think much is going to change, certainly for a very long time. Just because it's in consultation with the government, that does not mean that there's going to be a new law that comes in. Loads of stuff all the time go into consultation by the government and nothing changes, nothing happens. And even if it is, a new law does come in, it will probably take months and months, maybe even years before it happens, because it has to go through the House of Commons, the House of Lords. Edinburgh announced that they were going to follow London, because London, there is a 90-day rule. You can't rent your property out in London without planning permission if you're going to do it for more than 90 days a year. And Edinburgh said, right, we're going to follow suit. And they said, but in a year and a half's time, April 2023, we're going to bring in that same law. And when it came to it, they actually didn't bring it in. And now they're saying, oh, maybe it's going to be in 6 months or so. There's no point worrying about something that's not in yet. But it is important to be forewarned. So what's my prediction and what's going to happen? Well, my prediction is that at some point, I do think that Airbnb and short stay lets are going to get more regulated, because at the moment, they're pretty much completely unregulated. You can rent out your shed in your garden on Airbnb. No tenant rights, no guest rights, no washing facilities. You can just stick it on Airbnb and rent it out. So I do think that there's going to be some regulation, particularly as the fact is that we've got a massive shortage of houses and there's a massive shortage of rentals. And the more and more people are renting it out on short stay lets, it means that there's even less of a demand. So I do think they're going to bring in some regulation. And I predict it's going to be a little bit like Article 4 was for HMOs. And I remember back in 2016 when it was announced that Wolverhampton was going to become Article 4. So if you want to rent a property out as a HMO, you need planning permission. And everybody was all upset around my neighbouring area of Wolverhampton, and they were saying, oh no, and they were scared and they weren't getting into HMOs because they knew about the regulations. But I was just thinking, I'm just going to make hay while the sun shines. If I buy a property and rent it out room by room, I'll make £1,000 a month profit. If the rule changes in a year's time, well, I'm still made 12 grand per house. Like, I don't care if the rule changes, I'll cross that bridge. So I really pushed into buying HMOs. And then when they brought in Article 4 in Wolverhampton, the rules changed, but I had grandfather rights. So they said, you can't buy properties and rent them out as HMOs unless you've already been doing it. Then you have grandfather rights. So it might be that there's serviced accommodation grandfather rights. Who knows? And then all the people that are scared and are worried, so you need to be forewarned. I wouldn't suggest that you go crazy in one particular town and have 100 serviced accommodation properties whereby there's no exit strategy. You wouldn't be able to make money on them as single lets, because it's possible that they'll regulate the area and you'll be really screwed. So diversify, have multiple baskets, have all your eggs in one basket, but at the same time, you've got to make hay while the sun shines. And at the moment, serviced accommodation is very unregulated. You can rent a property out on Airbnb, on booking.com for £100 a night, make £3,000 a month. Whereas if you rent it out to a family, you might make £800 a month. So it's madness. So learn the strategy, do it, but be forewarned. I think that it's extremely unlikely. I just can't see that they're going to suddenly put a blanket ban across the whole of England, because for a start, it's a good service. I use Airbnb all the time. I go and stay in properties. There's a lot of parts of the world whereby there's very rich people renting their properties out on short stay lets. I just can't see they're just going to ban it. What they may do is regulate it, and I predict that they'll probably do it. They'll start in some of the hotspot areas, maybe some of the tourist beaches, where the communities, the local communities are really moaning and going mad, and they go, okay, in this area you need a particular type of planning permission or a license to do it. And then they might start rolling it out slowly across different areas. It may happen, we must be forewarned, but at the same time, in the last 2 months, I've taken on over 60 serviced apartment units myself. So I'm aggressively doing it, but I'm also doing buy, refurbish, refinance. I'm also doing HMOs. I'm also doing purchase lease option agreements. I'm also buying land and developing houses. So it's a string to my bow, it's not the whole guitar. That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and I will keep you updated once the consultation is finished and we've heard any news or updates on any regulation. Of course, we'll keep you updated, so make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel where you always hear first on the Samuel Leeds channel. See you next time.